Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are returning. I'm so grateful that you're here. We are going to be talking about taking up space, also known as the visibility wound. There's lots of different ways of phrasing this. This is a very deep, both psychological and spiritual issue, and it comes up for me all the time. It comes up for so many people, including healers, including people who are really deeply committed to spiritual growth and service. And this is something I work on pretty much every day. So very often, this is the unconscious shadow that prevents healers and seekers and leaders and light workers of all kinds from being seen, from allowing themselves to be seen. You get this visibility fear. So I'm going to dive right in. I have a lot to say. I have lots of notes, otherwise I'll talk for an hour. I am taking space on your screen. Let's dive in. I will be sharing with you a list of 9 ways that the fear of being seen or the fear of taking up space can show up for you. Notice where this lands in your body, where there's recognition, where you feel resistance, maybe there's emotion. That's where your gold is. So don't stop there. Write it down, step away if you need to, and then return and go into it. Go into it. This is where the healing can really happen for you. So let's start with talking about, how do we take up space in the world? How does it happen? This connects to the fact that we have a body, we have a field, we have an energy field, and our presence in the world, no matter how small, has an impact. It has an impact even if you don't speak to a single soul, but of course you do, right? Even if you don't see a single soul, but of course you do. So we have a body. We take up physical space. You take space in a store. You take space on a plane. I feel like rhyming here, but you take space on a road in your car, right? You just physically take space. Also, we have needs. You have the basic needs, you have the more nuanced ones, you have dreams, you have desires. You are interdependent with other people, which means you depend on other people for certain things, they depend on you for certain things. There's no way to avoid that, which means you have an impact, which means you take up space in their world, in their psyche, etc. We talk to people, right? We impact them with our presence. Your facial expressions take up space in another person's field. We create things in the world that affect other people, right? Whether that's something that you post on the internet, which is one of the most common ways that we now create, but you may create art, you may be a singer, you may write, whatever, books, you may, whatever it is. We create things and they impact people, and that's how you take up space. You have feelings, you have requests, you have opinions, you have spiritual insights. We'll get into all of that and how all of that can get twisted inside you when you have the fear of being who you are. I'm sure I missed a few things on that list. I kind of went through and pulled up the most irrelevant, the most kind of alive, but there's probably others, right? In fact, put it in the comments. What did I miss? How else do we take up space in the world? And I'm going to move on to the list of 9 ways that the fear of taking up space can show up. Number 1 is apologizing for your existence. This is at the core of most of this list. It comes from childhood messaging, from trauma. Whenever you wanted to express yourself in any way, if you were told not to, if you were told it was wrong, if you were shushed, if you were yelled at for just being who you are, right? You develop this internal belief, or on some spectrum of this internal belief, that I am too much for just existing, and therefore I don't deserve to be fully seen. Because that was your message, right? You were being who you are, you were being your full self, and you were shushed, or you were smacked, or you were in whatever way the messaging told you that's too much. So of course that message translates into, I don't deserve to be seen because look how people are behaving, right? So how that translates in your day-to-day, you might be saying, I'm sorry all the time. Even if you haven't done anything wrong, and even if it doesn't even belong in the sentence, and you'll just say, I'm sorry. I'm sure you know lots of people who constantly apologize. It's kind of obvious. You may avoid eye contact, especially if you're expressing a feeling or a need. Makes sense, right? If your nervous system believes that that's not welcome, you're going to have a hard time looking someone in the eye and asking for something or expressing something, right? Now, because I said, and remember, we have a body, right? On a physical level, you may shrink your body posture, right? You might kind of just live like this a lot of the time. And not just because you're looking at your phone, right? But actually, you'll see people kind of have a shrunken version. And sometimes I have to like remind myself to open up physically, right? You may avoid wearing bright colors or makeup because that brings attention to you. Then you're seen. I had a guide during a retreat who noticed this in me. And I like color and I wear color a lot. But she said to me, you should wear red lipstick. Uh, and not a should, but she just kind of pointed out how there was a small way where I could wear color, but I wouldn't like brighten my face with red lipstick. And that was a way that I was hiding. And now I wear red lipstick and I love it. Physically, too, this is where people can develop eating disorders, to physically shrink away. Now, I am not going to go into this topic, it's too enormous, and I will just say that there are so many contributing factors. This can be one of them. Sometimes it's the main one because a child growing up as a child, this person felt like they're not allowed to exist and their body is the only way, like not eating or throwing up or things like that, is one way that they can control their body size. Or this can happen, like in my case, in the opposite direction, where you develop a larger body. Because, and this is how it happened for me. On some level, I always knew I was meant to take up space. I was always somehow in leadership roles and positions. And I say somehow because I was 6. So I had no idea. I didn't know this was innate to me. Um, but because my taking up space in small ways as a child was pushed away, it became physical. So I knew I had to take up space, and then I kind of grew a larger body. And then it became laced with shame. I'm taking up too much space. I'm too big. I take up too much room on a seat or whatever. So that was number one, is apologizing for existing. Number two, the struggle to receive. And it can be anything: presence, help, support, love, space to feel, body work on any level. You may be deflecting compliments. So if somebody says, oh, great job, you've done such an enormous job on this project, and you're like, oh, no, no, it was nothing, right? That's a way where you're saying, don't worry, I don't exist too much. I don't take up too much space. Or you may laugh off or minimize any kind of praise. Or if somebody says, wow, that's a beautiful blouse, or, your makeup looks so beautiful, you might just go, oh, not even thanks, right? Even thanks becomes difficult. Or if somebody offers you a gift, you might feel embarrassed. You might feel undeserving. Oh, no, no, I can't take this. No, no, that's too much, too much, right? That's a way where taking up space, right? Somebody is acknowledging your existence, acknowledging your impact, because taking up space means you exist. It means you have an impact. And this person is saying, you had an impact here. I want you to have this. And you're rejecting it because you don't want to acknowledge in yourself that yes, you exist and yes, you have an impact. Receiving emotional support is in this category as well. You might be spectacular at holding space for other people to have their feelings, but then when you're the one who needs support, it's the same thing as receiving a gift and rejecting it because you don't want to acknowledge that you exist and that you have needs. And this is where guilt comes up, that you have to somehow make up for what you're being offered. It has to be reciprocal. If somebody says you have a beautiful blouse, you have to say, oh, I love your shoes, right? You're searching for that because you feel guilty. Sometimes it's not why you return a compliment. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to tell you, man, your shoes are gorgeous, right? That's different. So that's where it's nuanced, and you have to kind of go inward and see what space are you offering that return compliment from, or even the original compliment. This leads me to number three, which is shrinking your expression. So if you stay silent in meetings and classes and circles and relationships and friendships, if you just stay quiet because you just don't want to make an impact because you're afraid of taking up space, this is one of those areas where you stay quiet. You might wait to see if other people feel the way you do before you speak up. That's another way that this can show up. Or only speaking up when you're 100% sure that it's valuable and that it's perfectly said. I struggle with this too, where if I stumble or if I'm not exactly sure how to express something, I might not post it. I might sit on it for too long, even though the gist of the message, right? 90% of it would be so powerful and potent, but I'm like, oh, I'm not 100% on that, right? So that's one area that a lot of us actually struggle with. And related to this is soft pedaling your language. Speaking on lowercase energetics. When you use hedging words, filler phrases, when you are don't want to sound like you're too much, you're too intense, or you're too pushy or something like that. Like you might say, "Oh, I kind of feel like this part's important," right? Instead of you saying, "This is so important," right? You see the difference. You're kind of saying the same thing, and yet, and yet. Number four is asking for permission instead of declaring your truth. So this is related to the one I just mentioned. They do kind of bleed together, and I had to separate them into a few categories so that we can talk about them. So, asking for permission instead of declaring your truth. So, you'll frame your needs or desires as a question, a soft hint. You want somebody to read your mind a little bit, not a ton, but you just want to be like, I wonder if this is okay to ask. You notice how I did this with my body because it's a way to shrink. You might preface your opinion with something like, well, I don't know if this will make sense to you, but, and then you say the thing as opposed to just saying, here's what I think, right? And expect that the person can take it or leave it. You don't have to preface it that way. And even deeper, you may feel like you don't have permission. You can't even ask for permission. You just assume you don't have it, right? To speak your truth. This is where you may end up comparing yourself to others as if to say, well, if someone else can do it, so can you. You get that implicit permission from the other person who is, speaking that truth and is open to just expressing it. And it's okay to use this as a stepping stone, but if you stay there, you're going to be outsourcing your permission to exist. So take that as a stepping stone, learn from how another person holds themselves. If that inspires you, go, oh, okay, I could see why it's okay to be like this. And then don't look to other people anymore if you can help it. Or wean yourself off of looking to other people. Number five is dimming your passion or your enthusiasm. When you act less excited about something so that you don't stand out too much. When you downplay that you care deeply about something because you're afraid you're going to be judged. When you avoid sharing something you've created because you're afraid you're going to be seen as too weird or too out there or wacky or, right, somehow you won't be taken seriously. just because you're different. If you were told that children should be seen and not heard, you've probably learned to minimize your passion and excitement. I had this one very badly for a long time. I was judged for every emotion as a child, even the happy ones. Seriously, I would be told, you laugh too much, you're going to cry later. Did you get that one? Right? And certainly crying, crying was not okay. It was, ugly. It was gross. It was annoying, all the things, right? So the danger here is that eventually what happens is it's not like you're quietly passionate and you just keep it to yourself. The problem is you actually stop being aware that you are passionate about anything. You stop looking for things to be passionate about. Your nervous system literally says it's unsafe. So why would you? So that's the danger. And so if you're in that category where, you dim your passion, you might have dimmed it to yourself as well, right? If you're never enthusiastic about anything, think about this one, right? Were you kind of pummeled as a child or really pummeled as a child so that you dimmed everything you're passionate about so that you wouldn't be too expressive? Okay. That was number 5. Number 6 is over-explaining or over-justifying your decisions or your opinions or anything. If you feel like you need to prove or earn every choice you make, or if you offer long rationales for simple boundaries. So let's say somebody invites you somewhere and you want to say no, you're too tired, or you really just don't like the people, or whatever it is, right? Do you write a long text or a long email back explaining why? Maybe you even make up a plausible reason that that person will understand so that, right? That's you being afraid to take up space with your truth, right? I'll repeat that. You're afraid to take up space with your truth. Your truth, I'm not saying you have to say, I hate the people, I'm not going. Depends on who you're talking to, right? But if you make stuff up to over explain, to soften, you see what I'm saying? That's a way where you're afraid that your truth takes up too much space. It has too much impact. It's going to upset too many people or the wrong people. And then you're in trouble, and then you might as well just push it down and soft pedal everything. And that's a way where you don't take up space with your truth. Number 7 relates to this very much. Again, they bleed together. People pleasing as a default. Another way of saying that is you're afraid to rock the boat. If you sacrifice your self-expression to keep the peace, that's another one of those things that is fully created when you are a child, when your parents told you you are too much, too many times, right? When you say yes, when your soul and your heart and your body are screaming no, right? That's a way where you are afraid to rock the boat and you people please so that they're not upset. What happens there is you absorb the upset. Then you're someone who's upset anyway. Why does it have to be you, right? This is also related, the people pleasing piece, and the fear of rocking the boat. This is related to the fear of charging an aligned fee for your work because you are afraid of your impact on others. You're literally in their wallet or in their bank account going, oh, you can't spend that much money on me, right? I'm not worth it. The whole self-worth thing is woven throughout all of these 9. Number 8 is an interesting one. Fearing success as much as you fear failure. This is a very deep one because most people will say, well, of course I want success. And I just haven't gotten there yet, but of course I want it. I'm working on it, right? This is a deep one because it connects to the beliefs that if you are powerful, if you are successful, it will lead to problems such as rejection or isolation or criticism, which is another form of rejection. So you end up self-sabotaging either before an expansion or immediately after. the snapback, right? I've talked about this before, where you let yourself expand a little bit, and then immediately after you'll twist your ankle, or you will, back out of something, or you'll say, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, I know that was nice, but I'm not going to do it again because, well, it took up too much energy," or something like that. But it's actually a fear that you are expanding too much and too fast. This is one of those things that people protest with me all the time. And it actually is because it's so deep that most people don't want to acknowledge how terrifying it is to actually succeed or to actually expand because your nervous system isn't used to it. If your nervous system is used to being small, being shy, not taking up too much space, it has a particular kind of energy that it's used to. It's safety, right? It's been safety, except it doesn't make sense anymore because you don't need that safety anymore, right? You're not a 6-year-old child anymore. You're not going to get screamed at or beaten up anymore. And yet your nervous system doesn't care. This is where the work becomes incremental and slow and allowing yourself those expansions and catching yourself when you do have an expansion or you're approaching one and you suddenly feel a little down or very down, or you're suddenly preoccupied with something completely unrelated, or mysteriously something pops up in your life that suddenly needs your attention, and a lot of it, it's interesting how those things show up, right? And I'm putting that in quotes because it's you creating that because the expansion was too scary. And don't judge that if you can help it. If you catch it, this is gold. If you catch it, you can work with it. You can go, oh, this is one of those things where I had a phenomenal day yesterday. I had this opportunity come up, something really good happened, and today I just feel like crap, so it must be bad. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. This is it, one of those things. I'm afraid of the expansion. Tune into that, feel it, and go, oh, I'm afraid of this. And then you do nervous system work. This is what I do with clients. You can look up, there's lots and lots and lots of uh, tools available online if you look for it. But honestly, all it takes is connecting to that truth and going, wow, there's a part of me that's really scared. I'm going to take care of that part of me and I'm going to keep moving forward because there's no actual danger, right? That's the key. I'm going to move on to number 9, which is toning down your spiritual gifts or your intuition. And intuition is something we all have. We're born with it. Some of us have a lot more of it than other people, but we all have it. And some of us have spiritual gifts. And if you have deep insights, you get downloads, you get visionary experiences, and you don't share them because you're afraid you're going to be too out there, criticized or rejected. If you avoid using metaphysical language, because you are afraid you're going to be too out there or you're going to be called woo-woo, right? I had this one badly too. I was very spiritually aware, and yet in my therapy practice, I would never use that language because I was afraid that my clients would just find me crazy or out there or woo-woo or something like that, or think of me as unprofessional, even though it's fully aligned with how I see the world and what I see our human existence as. This does apply to people who go through spiritual awakenings or have a plant medicine journey and have spiritual insights. They start seeing things in a way that people around them might be really uncomfortable with, and then they tone it down, tone it down, tone it down. So this is one of my deep fears that I work on pretty much every day. I didn't even know I had this as a gift. I have this gift of being able to see people's hidden shadow. I don't see it visually. I just need to interact with them for a short while and I can see through the shadow, and a lot of it is stuff that nobody wants to hear because it's shadow, because it's hidden for a reason, and I get all that, but I didn't even let myself own the fact that I have this ability. And I've been terrified, like honestly terrified. I would be aware of something in a friend or a client or whoever, a teacher. And some places it's really not appropriate to bring this kind of stuff up. But my fear came from being seen as something that I don't agree with. And I just toned down the ability. That is a way of avoiding taking up space. So, in that list in the beginning, where I say how we take up space, I said avoiding spiritual gifts. And I mean, having spiritual gifts that we avoid sharing, right? This is a big one. We are all born with at least one. At least one. You're clear something, clairaudient, clairvoyant, clair whatever. And if you have never touched that, that's fine. You may eventually, your dreams may show you. By the way, your dreams can show you your spiritual gifts that you were born with. It's pretty incredible. I do this kind of work with people to show them which spiritual gifts are coming online, but you have to have the courage to own it and to connect to it in a way where your body doesn't feel terrified, not just to receive the information, that's one piece. But the other piece is to share the information because very often it's, you are a mirror to the world. Your body has to feel safe to be able to share that. So those are the 9. If you related to some or all of them, you are not alone. These patterns are ancient, but they don't have to be permanent. So the next question is, what do we do? How do I deal with this? I have 7 of them or whatever, right? Step 1 is always awareness. So you're halfway there because you are watching this video and you've gotten to this point where you're asking the question, what do you do with this? Awareness. Bring consciousness to this issue without judging it as bad. We're used to, and those of us who do spiritual work, it's very, very common to judge it as, oh, I have this shadow. It's bad. I need to work on it so that I can get rid of it. That is not the point. We don't get rid of or bring in or, you see through it because once you see through it, it actually dissolves on its own. You don't have to get rid of it, but you don't try to get rid of it. So bring awareness. You go, ooh, I was about to send this really long email apologizing for why I didn't want to go to this Christmas party or something. And you catch it and you go, ooh, I'm afraid of letting my truth be out there, right? Have compassion, right? You learned these patterns to survive. They helped you navigate very unsafe spaces and energies. But survival is not the same as sovereignty anymore, right? It used to be. You never were actually sovereign as a child because you were dependent, fully dependent for your survival. Now it's a very different story. You are ready to reclaim your full presence. Now you need to rewire yourself to take up as much space as you need, as you want, and as you desire. So keep internalizing what I'm saying. You are unique. Your impact on the world is unique and needed. We are mirrors for each other, and how you mirror the world is needed just as much as anyone else's mirror. And what you have to bring through as a spark of the divine is needed in the world. You may internalize this in your mind, and it may be a nice thing to hear. And your body may be like, yeah, 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 but I can't say that thing still because somebody might be mad. Your child self was once afraid that the fullness of who you are would overwhelm, would rock the boat. It was related fully to your survival, but it's no longer true. So here's a simple, powerful practice that you can begin to use to shift this. Once a day or more, if you're ready, give yourself permission to be fully present in a moment where you would normally shrink. Normally, what would happen is you'll just catch yourself having already apologized somehow for taking up space. See if you can make a shift right there. If you can catch yourself before you would do it, it will eventually happen. You'll start catching it. You might say, "Oh, I was about to apologize, but I'm not going to because I'm not actually sorry." Right? Maybe you'll speak your truth a minute sooner. Maybe you'll take your time before you answer a question. You don't just jump to answer because you need to take care of the other person. You can take care of you and think about the question, maybe even take a breath, right, before you answer. Maybe it means you raise your prices by a few dollars or many dollars if you've really been undercharging yourself because you were people pleasing, or even just taking up a little bit more room in your body, right? It's not about being visible constantly or pointing to yourself or being like, I'm great, I'm great. Like, it's not about that at all. It's about practicing presence in the space where your nervous system wants to say, no, 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 hide, hide, hide. That's where your freedom begins, where you start to teach your nervous system, you don't have to hide. We're safe. So if this is stirring something in you, I am grateful because you've touched something gold in you, something that needs your attention. Like I said, we all do. I have several of these that I work on all the time. This is part of the work that I do with clients. I help them uncover the hidden fears and their shadow knots, especially around their visibility, their money, their worth, and their spiritual gifts. Like I was mentioning before, your dreams will show that. And I help them bring these into the light with deep reverence for your truth. Reach out if you want to know more about what I do, my offerings, or if you're ready to begin. Thank you so much for being here and for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.